Good evening. In a moment, you're going to meet a mother whose strength will stay with you long after this video ends. Her name is Pastor Patricia Strong Fargas, the mother of Kristin High, a 22-year-old woman whose life was tragically cut short during a pledging process for Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated at Cal State Los Angeles in 2002. This interview was one of the hardest I've ever done because Pastor Pat made me feel the deep pain no parent should ever have to endure. Not just the loss of her daughter, but the cover up, the silence, and the secrecy that followed. So before we begin, I want to caution our viewers what you're about to hear, what you're about to see may be emotionally difficult. It contains firsthand accounts of loss, deception, and the trauma caused by hazing. If you've lost someone or survived hazing yourself, please take care of your heart as you watch this. Now, this episode, A Mother's View, Hazing and Its Hidden Toll, was created in collaboration with Lambda Theta Alpha Latin Sorority Incorporated, and it stands as both a tribute and a warning. If you believe parents deserve answers, if you believe hazing has taken enough lives, please subscribe to Cultured Unplugged and share this video with someone who needs to hear it. You can also support families like Pastor Pat's through Parents United to Stop Hazing.org, and for verified information, prevention tools, and education on the latest of hazing, visit stophazing.org and hazinginfo.org, because this is where the silence ends. Thank you and good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining us for this powerful conversation on hazing, healing, and hope. Tonight's seminar is brought to you in collaboration with Lambda Theta Alpha Latin Sorority Incorporated, who stand with us in saying tradition should never cost a life. We are here to remember and honor Kristin High, who, along with her best friend, Kenitha Saafir, tragically drowned on September 9, 2002, in Playa del Rey, California, during a pledging process with Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated at Cal State, LA. Kristin was a young woman full of promise whose life was stolen by a culture that calls itself tradition, but thrives in secrecy and silence. So tonight, we are honored to not only have her mother, Pastor Pat, with us, but also her oldest sister, Nikki Michelle High, is a mother of three, a grandmother, and works as a case manager with the Bureau of Victim Services through the Los Angeles District Attorney's Office. She has carried that trauma from the loss of her sister, but she has also become a drum major in the fight against hazing, ensuring that Kristin's name and so many others like her will never be forgotten. As someone who has also survived hazing myself, I know the scars it leaves, the fear, the shame, and the silence. But tonight we break that silence together. Pastor Pat, Nikki, thank you both for being here with us tonight.
Thank you, Chris, and my sisters from the sorority, from Theta, and everyone that's on and hearing my voice. I'm not going to say that I'm glad I'm here because of the trauma and the tragedy that we had to face to be here, but I'm glad to be a part of a group of people knowing that hazing kills and it has to stop. Um, I just want to tell you that this incident, this hazing, took away a lot of my heart. You know, some people, when you lose someone, it's, oh, my heart is broken. I want to say when mothers and parents lose a child, your heart has been taken away, a piece of it has been taken away. And it's no easy way to fix that. But the only way is to stop traumas and tragedies that causes our hearts to be broken. So I'm here tonight to give you a picture of my beautiful daughter, Kristin High, who was born on April the 11th, 7 pounds, 11 ounces, green-eyed girl that brought so much joy to me, her mom, her dad, Sam, her sister, Nikki, her son, Skylar, and the whole entire family. Kristin was a great person. And Chris, do you want me to tell more about Chris?
I do, and I will actually allow you and give you that space because I know I'm feeling all of the energy and the love that's pouring, and I just want you to know we're gonna walk through that together. I Before I begin, I know there's a power in the word mother. When we think of a mother, we think of someone that will go the unlimited lengths to make sure that their child is protected. And when anything happens to our child, our children especially, the first thing we're going to do is we're going to find a way we can stop the pain from happening. But when you take the power away from when something like this happens, it's a pain you just don't forget. So, Pastor
Absolutely.
Pat, before we talk about what happened, I'd love for you to introduce us to Kristen as you were getting ready to, as you knew her. Who was she? What brought her joy? What dreams do you think she was chasing?
Well, Kristen was very tall because her dad, my husband Sam at that time, Kristen and Nikki's dad, was an ex-professional basketball player for the Detroit Pistons. And he was 6'9", where Kristen grew to be 6 feet. And she was at 6 feet, green eyes, blonde bummer, I call her, with a competitive spirit, even in kindergarten. And when I took her to kindergarten in her first week or two, her kindergarten teacher approached me and said, "You never have to worry about Kristen and her academics because Kristen wants to be first and she wants to keep up with everybody." Very competitive. So Kristen was academic swift. She was a socialite. She had friends, even in preschool, because we owned a Christian school, my family did. And she was Miss Top in her preschool class and just had plenty of friends. She was a leader. She had a class A personality as she continued to grow through high school, through elementary, junior high, and high school. She had this beautiful smile that captured people's attention. And as I said, she's a sports enthusiast. She loved to work with kids, and everyone she approached, she wanted to get the best out of them. And she loved God. That was number one. She loved God. And what brought me joy about Kristen was her point of helping others. Kristen was so funny and so serious. She wanted to be top in everything. So her older sister, Nikki, had a beautiful singing voice, but Kristen didn't. Kristen still didn't stop her. She always auditioned for the top, so she did make Dorothy in The Wiz. And they had to create her some way to sing. But everything that she did, she was class A. She had the joy of helping others in sports, and she was very creative. And she was just fun to be with her cousins and her sister and her friends. But most of all, her son Skylar was her joy. She left him when she was 2 years old. And that was her joy, was Skylar. But her dreams, well, she was engaged to Skylar's father, Holman. The day of her death, he had proposed to her. They called me and said, could I marry your daughter? I said, no. But that wasn't serious. I said, well, that's up to Kristen. I know that Kristen always makes things, she was class A. She knew what she wanted to do and she wanted to do it well. And then I knew she would be a great mom. But in her professional life, her number one thing was to be an um, entertainment lawyer out here in the great Los Angeles. She wanted to be an entrepreneur and own a center to support women to have their equal status and become great leaders. She was um, a woman who wanted the best for others, and she wanted to do what she needed to do to help others to get where they needed to go. So that's one reason why she joined AKA. She thought that was the way. She had two aunts who was 50-year sorors, and she thought that was the way. But because of hazing activities, it killed a great lady. My daughter, Kristin High, and even her lying sister, Kenitha Saafir, were two great Class A ladies that was taken away too soon and by a crazy activity that should stop and never happen again. Kristin was great. I hear the kids right now at our school, they're all grown now, and they still think about Kristin. We had the Bad News Bears basketball team at our Christian school, and Kristin coached them into the number one team. That's who my daughter was. And yeah.
Thank you, Pastor Pat. I just
Mm.
hearing you resonate some of the wonderful attributes about her, the character that she was, her aspirations, and the legal side of life, just lets me know that you did an amazing job just for bringing her up in the light, bringing her up in prayer, and keeping her close to God. So I truly know that her energy is here and would be proud essentially for what we're doing and trying to save lives. Can you share with us what you learned about Kristen's pledging process? When did you begin to sense something wasn't right?
Well, I recognized that it was not necessary, the things they were doing. I recognized that something wasn't right about it, but I myself did not pledge. I I was a basketball wife, and then eventually after my as I was going to college, I had Nikki and my husband who was a basketball player. Um, I didn't pledge, nor did he. And so when I recognized it, by all the late nights that she was coming in and the constant calls, the constant meetings, the quiet and silent conversations with her lying sisters. And they called me the snitch. That's was my nickname, the snitch. And because they had to be quiet, and that's what I said something wrong. And then the constant requests from her big sisters and from the sorors of doing jobs, go get my groceries, braid my hair, serve. One of the big district leaders had a barbecue down in San Diego, and the little sisters had to be the servants. And when I heard all that, and I said, "What is that all about?" And then when she came home one night with a bruise and a broken tooth, green paint in her hair, and all the time, and she was tired, it was something wrong. Something was not right. It does not take that to become an AKA. And she was not herself. Seems as if they had brainwashed her. It had, she was not Kristen. It was something that they were doing to make her honor the big sisters, honor AKA, when she shouldn't honor nobody but God. So that's when I really start saying, what is happening here, Kristin? You know, yeah,
Thank you
that's
for
what I do.
sharing that. I can tell you it's one of those things when you're attempting to be in a process, you feel isolated, you feel like there's no one you can talk to. And I want to talk about when you just mentioned as far as being brainwashed. In the A&E documentary, you spoke about that. And looking back now, what do you think drove her to push through the pain and stay committed even when her safety was at risk?
Because as I mentioned before, her and Kenitha were class A ladies. And everything that they put themselves to do, they were successful in doing it. And she thought, I don't know how she thought, but the way I think is that she thought she could do it. She thought that she could. I was shocked. Nikki could tell you too. We were shocked because Kristen don't take nothing off of anybody. And the things that we heard as the pledging, as we were going through depositions and different things that I heard that they did to my daughter, we were shocked. And I think because of my two aunts being 50 years sorrow, all the famous people that was part of the AKA, and she thought that would be a step into making what she wanted her life to be a leader, entrepreneur, and to help other people. So I think
Absolutely.
that was it.
Thank you. And I hear you 100% because there is so much, uh, a lot to admire for a lot of people when it comes to these organizations. They're in top places in parts of the government where we had a former vice president was a part of AKA as well. So different examples of seeing that. And for some reason, when this all came about, it seems like the actions were a little bit different than what they were trying to put out there. Is what it sounds like. I've never forgotten those nights where I felt like I was being pushed beyond my limits in my own process, the sleep deprivation, humiliation. Can you walk us through what happened that night, the night of September 9th, 2002, when Kristin and Kenitha drowned? Can you share with us when you got the call? Please, if you don't mind.
Okay. That day was really different. It was just totally strange. Um, Before that day, Kristen had journeyed I mean, two months before that happened, maybe 1 month before. Kristen was already a leader in the NAACP. She led a lot of organizations here in LA. She was a lot like her mom, a whole lot like me, all into things. And so when she got back from one of her meetings in Houston, yeah, the month of August, she said to me, Mom, my life, now this is gonna sound real strange, but this is the way God works with people who knows him. My life, I feel is gonna be very short, but in my life, I'm gonna help women. I'm gonna make some changes in my life. And that was just, she had come to my bed just before the day she died to tell me that. And I began to say, what did you see? What movie did you look at last night, Kristen? Um, what, why would you say that? And she said, I don't know. I just feel that way. And so we prayed and we went off to bed. So as I was leaving that morning, going down the hallway, she beckoned me to her room and she said to me, Mom, you're right. I should have never been part of this group. But guess what, Mom? It's almost over. It's almost over. I'm almost done. And when I get it done, when I get through with this, I'm going to make some changes to this organization. If you get the drift, I'm going to make some changes to this organization. So I said, Kristen, you better get up. She was so tired. And she was dressing Skylar to go off to our little family preschool. And Kristin did some work, was a secretary at our elementary section, and then she went off to her to Cal State LA for classes. So it was very strange that whole day. Holman called her, took her to the shore ring. They called me about that, and then she talked to me about the ivory plant, and I said, "Kristen, I ain't thinking about that ivory plant." And then she also talked to her sister Nikki and asked her if she would babysit Skylar that night because I was going to my Wall Street Women of LA meeting. And so I couldn't keep Skylar until later on. So um, about 9-ish o'clock, Nikki brings Skylar to me. And Skylar was sleeping in my bed at that time. And I was actually writing a sermon. I wasn't asleep at all at between 12:30. I wasn't asleep, and I was just writing the last scripture in my sermon, and the doorbell rang. I'm going down the hallway. Kristen, where's your key? I said, "Oh, that's Kristen. She done left her key somewhere." And so as I opened the door, here stands LAPD from the Pacific District and a chaplain and also the mother-in-law of Kenitha Saafir standing at my door. And when they were standing at my door, the LAPD officer says, do you know Kristin High? And I immediately know, because the work that I do as a chaplain and everything, I immediately said, oh no, because he introduced the chaplain too. And I said, oh no, is she gone? Is she gone? And they walked in, I let them in. And then Skylar runs down the hallway crying because I'm crying and screaming. And they said, yes, it was a drowning accident. That's rung in my ear, a drowning accident. And the reason why that rung in my ear, the one thing at our school, and it was called Ruby's Christian Academy, that every kid had to learn how to swim. And Kristen had applied for a lifeguard. She passed it, but she moved on to something else. And I knew my daughter could swim. So that rang in my ear, an accident. And so I knew that she was gone. She was gone. My daughter had been snatched from our family, snatched from the world, snatched from a sorority that calls themselves sisterhood for a pledging process, which includes hazing. I knew something was absolutely wrong, but that was the start of my nightmare. The nightmare for my whole entire family and her friends. And it should have been a nightmare for AKA, which I think it was, but not the way it was for us.
Thank you for sharing, Pastor Pat. And I think I speak for everyone when we say we not only empathize with you, but we find as much as encouragement as we can to understand and how we can help to help save lives going forward. As the aftermath, I remember you sharing in A&E, the documentary, you mentioned that she was a hero at the end of this, that
Yeah.
she persevered and she let her self just, didn't think about herself in that moment.
Yeah.
Can you speak to that a bit and then share the aftermath, what happened next?
Well, we heard after a whole day of a missing car, my daughter's, no word from, well, we heard from AKA because my aunt, who lived in California, who's one of those 50 years I was telling you, she's one of the top Inglewood officers, and she called the district leader where they had gone to do the barbecue, and the lady drove up to San Diego. They were calling the person who was over that line and was saying what happened, what happened. But to honestly get the truth, they just kept going back and forth because they were trying to hide immediately. And I'm not going to say that my aunt, but she was twist between both family and that organization because she had been that for so long. And they were trying to get the truth to it. So you asked me the question, I forgot what you said.
No,
Uh,
that's okay. Yeah,
oh, okay.
yeah.
During that time, I know why I went off. We did hear from the little sisters and what my aunt them got back from what it was is that when the riptide and the wave took all four of them, whipped them under, the two other sisters got up and Kristin got up and she screamed and said, "Here's Kenitha, help me get her, help me get her." But nobody came but Kristin. Nobody grabbed but Kristin. We got that from the investigators because one of the neighbors of the beach told us that she heard a young lady said, I see her. And then the wave took over and they both were swept off. That's my daughter. That's my daughter. That's a sister. And I can tell you later why I know that that was a true sister because I know that if she had survived, she would have told the whole truth.
Pastor Pat, I thank you just for being just very open and candid to share that. I can say that no parent deserves what you went through. No parent deserves what Kenitha went through. And that's, I think, why it's so very important and vital that we protect our young people who are joining these organizations. And you
Absolutely.
mentioned that cover up. You mentioned in the documentary that, things started to appear like they were missing. The car was returned and all the things that she had was gone.
Right.
Can you share how that moment of cover up, even after that?
Well, it was, I had been up all night in the morning looking at TV, every news, local news and national news was showing Kenitha and Kristin's body wrapped up and taken by the coroner. I couldn't even watch the TV. My daughter couldn't watch the TV. None of us could watch it, but people were calling. My yard was filled with reporters. The police start covering it up at the beginning because they said it was accident. They didn't investigate. They didn't even know there was a law in the book about hazing and they knew it was a storm on the beach and they didn't get that big group of people off. So all the cover up started even with the policemen that they took the girls to the police station, pull off the black uniforms to even say what they were doing and as labeled it as a co-ed party.
Mm.
And that was the first cover because in my yard and on top of around the house was the helicopters flying over my house all day long. And attorneys were calling me and and my church families and of course our families and her friends. And so we waited for a whole day because Kristen drove her car to um to the beach. Well, let me say that's what one story said. I don't know really what happened. And but um we finally saw the car again the very next day, sometime in the afternoon. They they being the little sisters, two little sisters, And down the street was the big sisters down the street waiting for them to drop the car off. And as I was saying, news reporters were everywhere. So everything they were saying, them coming in there, uh, uh, the news picked it up. So in the midst of that, they drove her car back. I began to say, Jennifer, and what happened? Y'all tell me the truth. And Jennifer began to start talking, and the other sister hunched her, and so they shut down. But when we looked in the car, they had cleaned everything that represents AK out of there. It was cleaned out. The call was there. Jennifer, the little bit that we did get from her was that I asked her what happened, and she told me about Kristin, getting up and that, and then in the midst of that, I said, "Well, how did she get out of the? How did she and Kenitha get out of the water?" I got three stories, y'all. Three, and if I know the truth, it will set some people free. At least it would set me a little free. Three stories that was made up as the story begins. So we really don't know the truth. All we know is the car was cleaned up, secrecy began, shut down everything, and even the point that when we looked on AKA's website, it had that chapter on the website as active. The Cal State LA, it was active on there, but the very next day it was gone. And they began to start making up lies, talking about it was that sorority was no longer a sorority. They had been suspended and they were not, for us to prove to them that they're lying. Yeah.
You know,
So
we
it
see.
started with a lie, a lot of lies. Yeah,
Thank you. And we see that often with when stories like this happen, with recent news of recent cases of hazing, it's an automatic focus on how do we cover this up? And I don't think in anywhere it should be accepted that if you're going to say someone's your real brother or your sister, that you cover up something in the midst of protecting yourself.
absolutely.
If I can invite Nikki to the stage with us, I'd like to segue that part of the silence and how she's been able to be a instrumental pioneer to help lead the voice of change along with you, Pastor Pat. Nikki, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. I hope you guys can hear me. I might have a little background because I'm still kind of like in the field, but I can hear you.
Thank you, Nikki, and I totally understand. I just want to say it's grateful to be with you, connecting with you here on this channel here. Nikki, you've spoken about how the silence from organizations and institutions not only compounded your family's pain, but also motivated you to take action. Can you share what it has been like fighting against that wall of silence, both personally and in your walk with victim services?
Well, I will say it's a total different aspect with me working with the DA. I see the ins and out of crime. So it's a little different because I work in the aspect of giving victims or next of kin services and supports. But when it comes to sororities and fraternities, if you're not technically in a sorority or fraternity, it's really hard to give support or even have um, to get answers or even kind of insert yourself in a position of suggesting what could help or what can be helpful. To me, when it comes to sororities and fraternities, has been a pattern of just what they do. It's no logical reason. Where it came from is, from my understanding, you break a brother down to build a sister or brother up, which is
Mhm.
not even logical. So the whole mindset, I mean, and the way I view life is that I don't want anybody to break me down. I want you to love me, support me, understand me. And the whole aspect of sororities and fraternities came from helping the community. So where we're going to harm or hurt to be a part of just does not make sense.
Yeah.
So,
And I 100% agree with you, Nikki. Me going through that process, I can tell you, it's almost like it serves two different masters, and a lot of it is the control and the abuse. And it's a whole other conversation to say, well, you're serving, the process of joining an organization, but you're looking to also serve God too. But um, there's so much into that. I wanted to kind of shift a little bit and just ask you, how have you supported your mom through the fight against hazing? I know it's been almost over 23 years now. How has that road been, and what are some of the roadblocks or success you've seen?
well, me and my mom was a little different. So Pat can be a little patient and a little understanding, where I can be a little bit more I I need to know the answers. Don't think about it, because when you did those things, where was that thought process? So I am kind of a little bit more aggressive, I would say. I support my mom in a way of respecting the way her thought process is. So every time we go into a different arena and talking, it's sort of like, let me see who I'm talking to. Let me see the audience. Let me see, because if I'm talking to students who are in a process, maybe let me take this, because they maybe need a little bit more a person that's aggressive to let them see the damage this can happen to them. If we're in a group setting where we're just trying to understand and people are trying to understand like our grief, that's kind of like my mom's category of letting her speak. So I think we kind of piggyback off each other. Our grief, although it's been all these years, I will never get over this. A lot of reasons why is because didn't have to happen. The second reason why, it's a lot of reasons, is that, when it first happened, people wanted to say, well, you're blaming it all on AKA. Well, I thought about it like this. Yeah, it was those group of people who did it. But then when it came to the cover up, the people that were 80 and 90 years old was part of the cover up. So it started from the top. So I do have a problem with the whole organization, not just those group of people. And what did they do to stop this process? I can go on and on because I'm very vocal. We have plenty of family members who are AKA and who are in sororities or in fraternities that were cousins to my sister, first cousins. Have they asked my mama to come speak? Have they asked me? Have they even been vocal about hazing? So a part of that is wanting to have this image. And so beyond having human kindness, they'd rather have this image to say, I'm part of this. But what are you doing to make this organization better? So, we kind of look at it a little different, but our love for Kristen and our fight for Kristen is the same.
Thank you, Nikki. And I know for many of the viewers who are listening in, one of the biggest things that are they're in their minds is how do we protect and do things the right way, and do things in a way where it's acceptable, and it doesn't harm the people that I am trying to join with in terms in the
Mhm.
organization. Can you share what would you like to see differently as far as going forward, as far as what a process, if someone wanted to join an organization, would look like going forward?
Okay, I'm gonna tell you a short story. My mom probably doesn't want me to tell this story, but I'm gonna tell it because I'm an honest person, and it's the reality of things that happen. So we have a cousin who is joining, our little cousin. He's joining a fraternity, the same school Kristen goes to. When this happened to her, he allows himself to get hazed to the point where he couldn't sit down. So he's afraid. He's afraid. And the one person he goes to speak to about his hazing, you would never think that they would go to this person, was Skylar, my sister's son, who has his own personal trauma of his mother's demise because he never got to see her. He never got to have her. He was 2 years old. So, but because my little cousin was so frightened, he just went to the next person that would listen to him. So in our process, we literally had a family meeting because we were so discouraged on the fact that you would allow this to happen. Well, here you are, have advocates in your family who could assist you with this process. But wanting to belong is sometimes more powerful than your own identity. So how the process went was I told my mom, let's go to his parents. Let's talk to his parents because they could not possibly know what happened to their son and allow it. So I go to the father. He knows this is happening to his son. At his good age of 50, he wants to join a fraternity. So it's okay. This happened to my son. So I told him during that conversation, since you're allowing this and I'm an advocate against it, we will be calling the school and reporting the hazing. And we did just that. Because me and my mother had agreed to do that, that family did not talk to us for over 3 years because they were so upset that we called regarding his son being hazed and them doing all the things that they did to him. And so, what I want people to understand is when you know something, say something. Don't allow things to happen because what will happen is he was hazed as a young man. The next thought process is the next round of guys that come in, they do the same thing. I made it through. I was fine, even though I couldn't sit down, even though I was bruised, even whatever psychological things happened to me. I made it, so I'm going to do it to the next group. So it has to be a point where people are saying, I want to be a part of this, but I don't want this process. Because where's this helping me to make this organization a better place or for people to join? So that's
Right.
just a short story.
Nikki, I just want to commend you for sharing that because it's something that too many people forget, and that is that we're challenging that hidden like adoption of this is what has to be done. There's no other way. And it's so deeply ingrained as far as a legacy aspect where you had uncles and grandmothers who all
Mhm.
vouched for it. But the thing about it is that when someone, tragically gets an injury that's long term, forever, or a life loss, then what is their response at that point? That's what I'm really trying to understand. So we have to consider the dynamics of what you're really proposing and saying this
Yeah.
is okay. But I commend you both for speaking up and saying, look, this is what's going on. And I think everyone that's also watching should also be in that same breath would do the same thing because you just never know how hazing has affected someone, not only on the outside surface level, but the internal side. There is that part of
Mhm.
internal side that also damages someone psychologically.
Yeah.
So I commend you, and I can't put myself in a place where I can say I truly understand the dynamics of having a nephew, Skylar, grow up without his mother. There's nothing that could ever fill that void. So we give
Yes.
love to you, to your family, to be able to be here in this space to talk about that. It's complex as it is. So what do you think you'd wish would have probably been handled differently? Because we're thinking about 23 years later. Do you think if there would have been any type of, open arms, as far as acceptance, if they had maybe came out to say this, we are sorry that this happened, or, we apologize, but this is what happened and we want to be here with you. Do you think your perceptions or thought process might have been different towards the organization? This is for either Pastor Pat or Nikki.
I definitely think them admitting to the fact that this has been a long history of brutal hazing or brutal ritual to be part of would have not helped us process Christian steps, but it would at least know that they're in the steps of stopping it. I think that's my major problem. When you act like it still doesn't happen, okay, you show a video, you may have a speaker come out and speak for 30, 40 minutes, but they know it's happening and they do nothing to stop it. Um, I often bring up the culture of things. People don't like it, but it's the truth. A lot of times when me and my mom get invited to places, they are Caucasian, Hispanic fraternities and sororities who are open to the conversation. Our African American sororities and fraternities are closed off. It's as
Yes.
if they are fine with the brutality of it. And it's heart wrenching to know that you're okay with this. I know people who have I've spoken to about it, and years later they have come up to me and said, Nikki, I have to admit to you, they broke my ribs. Or this, and it's just like, what? Like and it was a process for me because, like my mom said, she built us to be very strong women. It started from my grandmother and it went down to my mom and my aunts and to us. So it hurt me so bad that Kristen allowed this to happen to her. So it was a lot of processing I had to do with that. Losing my best friend, my sister, my only sibling. It was just a lot, but if I could just get a very good, clear understanding from anybody who's involved in hazing, why it has to happen, not a clear understanding, a logical understanding.
Yeah.
I
And,
think it wouldn't better it, but I don't know what it would do for me. But it's no rhyme or reason for it. Why?
Thank
and
you.
then immediately when something happens or they start hiding and secrecy and they don't and most of the time the organization know it's going on. They then label it underground. But if you know that they're organizing a line, that's not underground. You should immediately start policing, start paying attention. Don't just put a statement on your website thinking that's policing. You make sure that if there is a line being started, that those people are doing exactly how they're supposed to be doing and not doing these underground activities that they do. So that's why I joined with other parents, a big group of parents. I had Mothers Against Hazing, but I also belong to a bigger group. And we just passed the Stop Campus Hazing Act. President Biden signed it in December 2024, which requires the institution of higher education to improve hazing prevention and reporting. Not only that, I fought for laws to change. If you commit a crime of hazing, you're going to jail. So we would like for all universities and sororities, fraternity, policemen, doctors, because I got calls from everybody with hazing, to realize that hazing is a crime, hazing kills, hazing hurt. Let's do something about it together, not consider it fun. Back in the day, I even went on a John Wash show. I was on a CNN. I was on a lot of shows. But John Wash had me on, and one man got up in his audience and said, "Oh, hazing is just fun. That's kids having fun." And John Wash stood up and said, "You out of here.
Mm.
This woman is hurt. Other parents are hurt from hazing. You out of here." If you can take a serious act as John Wash did and say no hazing, also contact the Campus Hazing and talk about the act with your sorority and fraternities and other groups. Talk to them. I am an ambassador. I just became an ambassador. We're ready to really put, well, what do they say? Put the boots on the ground. We're
Boots on the
boots on the
ground.
ground. We are ready to stop. I don't want to see another mother, another father, another sister, another child lose somebody in that useless act of hazing and pledging. When I was going through the depositions and they were saying all this, and by the way, in the deposition, you probably heard it in the A&E. I was supposed to spend a whole week in Chicago. And we spent less than 3 hours to prove that they were hiding secrecy. Because the good thing, what happened, the way God set it up, Kristin's car was cleaned out, but Kenitha forgot her book. She left it at home. And why she left it at home? For us to stop this hazing. So we had all the evidence to prove to them. And still, I have some organizations, some AKA sisters and sorority sisters saying, I mean, I got threats. All you want is money. You're talking, you don't know, and that was an illegal, I mean, they were a suspended organization, and that was a city. That all of that was not true. All of that was a lie. And we had the paperwork to show it in Chicago. So stop. And I love my daughter Nikki. We go at it like this, but I go with the law. Yeah. Okay.
You have the law and the faith behind, and
Okay.
that power, no one can break that. So I truly am grateful to not only hear your resilience as a mom, but as a force of change. You mentioned the Stop Campus Hazing Act, which was passed, and several schools across the country are adopting the changes required and mandated that transparency is number one. We are
Yes.
fighting the culture of hazing, and we're mandating training as well. Certain states, like Pennsylvania and Washington State, and many others, are toughening their laws, even Louisiana with the Max Gruver Act. So we're seeing changes. We're seeing the tide start to come into a position where enough is enough. And protecting young people, it should be the number one focus. And I think about, even from my story, I could have lost my life and I wouldn't be here in front of you talking with you tonight. So it is ever more important that we come as a coalition together. You can use and find resources on hazing, and how to prevent it and how to see the signs. We work in collaboration with the stophazing.org and the hazinginfo.org, where you can get real-time data, and it's valuable. And I'm so encouraged by the work that we're all doing, because I truly believe that we can put an end to it, end to this. Pastor Pat, what do you hope that this generation learns from Kristin's story, and that could finally end hazing? And where do you see things going forward in terms of how organizations kind of view this?
I really want Nikki to answer that because we talk about she worked with young people all the time. And I do too, as a pastor and a community worker. And our young people are different. They're different. But Nikki, could you answer? Did you hear the question?
I heard some of it. Can you repeat it?
Yeah, so I'm gonna kind of blend it into two questions. I really have two questions that I really wanted to get, and so we can get some encouragement and understanding. What do you hope this generation learns from her story, like Kristen's story, that could finally end hazing? And if you could speak to directly to a young woman today who is considering joining an organization, what warning signs would you want her to recognize? Sorry?
Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can. Some noise.
Yeah,
Can you guys hear me?
yeah.
Okay. What would I say? I most definitely would say, stand on what you know is right and wrong. You whatever you know that is right, don't worry about what other people will think of you. Stand up for yourself. It's okay to be the individual that says, no, this can't happen. No, this isn't right. Um, and know your purpose. When you want to join something, know what your purpose is. Don't just say, well, I want to join because I want to make whatever that noise they make, or I want to wear, I like pink and green or red or whatever. Know your purpose in it. Um, and don't allow people to do things that will violate you, and know that it's okay to speak and make changes.
Right. Ditto. I, you know, I definitely agree with Nikki, and I wanted her to speak because she's a little bit younger than I am. So maybe some of the younger people will listen to her even more. And the thing is, now they're publicizing the way they're getting new members by. I just saw that on one nightly news that all the line dancing and all everything it's they beautify it but yet not tell the whole story of how they got there and what they should not do. So they need to be truthful. I watch in the morning shows Today Show. That's my favorite, Today Show. Me and Al Roker. But Chanel Jones were not on there because of the loss of her husband. And I was praying for Chanel and everything. But the other day, she mentioned about her mother said she need to be an AKA. She could be pregnant in college, but she can't join another sorority. She has to be an AKA. She said that about that. I challenge Today's Show right now, because I've been watching it for years, to bring on some parents who have lost because um, majority of them belong to sororities and fraternities. They need to let the world see that there is something that need to be changed and not just line dancing, go line shows and stuff like that. So if the generation and the parents will see the wrong that has happened and make sure that it doesn't happen again, will make me feel good about the new generation becoming part of a sorority and fraternity, taking it serious.
Thank you, Pastor Pat, and 100% agree with you. And I look forward to seeing some change. And I think us continuing to do this work, continuing to raise and share your testimony, will be able to do that. I want to be able to get to the point now where we are moving towards the audience questionnaire and closing. But I have to say, Pastor Pat, Nikki, thank you both for your strength, your faith, and your courage in sharing Kristen's story, continuing to share Kristen's story. What you've given us tonight is not just testimony, it's a call to action. Hazing is not a rite of passage, it's a path to destruction. On behalf of Cultured Unplugged and Lambda Theta Alpha, we pledge to keep telling these stories, to keep pressing for change, and to keep honoring the lives of those lost, like Kristen and Kenitha. If you want to hear more of these stories as well, as far as I cover them significantly with passion, love, and grace on Cultured Unplugged. You can find that on the YouTube channel there. To everyone listening, remember September 9th, 2002. Remember Kristin High's name. Remember Pastor Pat as she's continuing to lead the charge and to help lead the change as well for Kenitha Saafir's name. Share their story so that no other parent or sister ever has to feel this pain. Where the silence ends is where the change begins. Pastor Pat, before we take questions, may I pray with you? Is that
Sure,
okay?
sure.
Father,
Very
we
good.
we thank you. We in the name of Jesus, we thank you for giving us the opportunity to hopefully strengthen and change lives. We pray that this testimony was delivered in a way that people can listen and receive and take change and take action, that we may bring love to each other and not harm to each other. And Heavenly Father, I ask that you will continue to guide Skylar, Heavenly Father, that you will continue to guide his heart, guide his journey, Heavenly Father. I know that Kristen is always there in motherly love, and we ask that you will continue to strengthen Nikki as well as she is in doing the good work against hazing and continuing to be a force of change with Pastor Pat. In your holy name, I pray. Amen.
Thank you. Thank you. Can I just give
Please
the
go ahead.
scripture that Kristen had on her wall and in her journal, in her room? It was out of Psalms 56. And it was a prayer of David as he was struggling and battling with things that was going on. But this is the scripture. You had Numbers 56, verse 3. When I'm afraid, I put my trust in you. In God, whose word I praise. In God I trust, and I'm not afraid. What can mere mortals do to me? That's what I take with me on the battlefield every day of my life. Every day that I fight the streets of Los Angeles to make things equal and justice for ones who are impoverished, and fighting for youth and seniors. And I take that word with me. My action is double because I got Kristin on one side and me on another, and making this a better place to live in this world. And you can do it too. All of you can. Go in with your sororities through charity and helping others. That's what God is pleased with. That is what makes this world a better place. So, whoever's listening to my voice, make a change. Don't be like the other people because it's dangerous and it kills and it hurts.
Thank you. We are with you, Pastor Pat, more than you know. Just are we allowed to take any questions? Is that something that we can do? Do we have any
Yes.
time?
Good evening. So we do have a question actually on the chat. So I want to say this one is for Pastor Pat. So how and at what age was the conversation had with Skylar as to what happened to his mother?
Um,
Mm.
he stayed with me till he was age 7, and then his dad got married again, got married. And he knew something was wrong because he asked for his mother constantly. And for him to get an understanding of what happened, it was probably age 4. And even today, sometimes he's 25 now. He's 25. And if you want to see him, he's a famous artist now. He's Skylar Gray. And his art is all over the world now. Um, but there's still a missing piece in his life. Oh my gracious, it's such a missing piece in his life. And I want to tell others, no matter how close you are, no matter your grandmother, great grandmother, auntie, sister, whatever, you cannot ever replace a mother in a child's life. All I can do is the best I can, but they're gonna miss. But Skylar was around 4 when we really had it. And the amazing part, he could retell that night. And like I said before, when we first started this is the first time Skylar actually been in the vicinity of where I'm speaking on this because he couldn't take it. He's a strong man, handsome man, but he just couldn't take it. But he's here tonight and he's listening. So
We
yeah.
we give as much strength and love to Skylar. And I remember seeing him in the documentary Hazing that Brother Byron Hurt produced and directed, which was a very moving documentary. And I remember that you in that there was a period of like an event where you were memorializing Kristin's story and Kristin's legacy. Can you share if how that happens annually? What does that look like in terms of that event every year since then?
Well, um we tried to do it maybe a couple of years after, then 5 years after, then 10 years after. And now we're putting our energy into making policy changes, bill change, making changes with a bigger group so we can have a bigger widespread change. And that one that you're talking about, he was a teenager, but we did not bring up what really happened. We were just memorializing Kristin, and you saw in the video that he couldn't take it. It
Mhm.
was his mom.
Yeah.
And he said to me just this past September the 9th, he said, I think to Kristen, I mean to Nikki also, I never hear a voice. We have videos of her when she was trying to be Dorothy of the Wiz and other things, videos of her going and even being with him. But to hear her natural voice, that's why AI can't take over the acting part. But because you have to hear that natural voice. And Skylar said, I'll never get to hear my mom's voice. Never to feel my mom's touch. And how true. How true. Yeah.
Pastor Pat, and I think I speak for many people, and especially this message, and to the viewers, the members of um, of the organization. This is the hazing that you don't see. These is the grief that we have to, as a family, families are devastated by, and they have to go on living like everything's normal, and it's never the same. So we thank you for just sharing that and just being really candid.
But overall, I want to say on behalf of Kat, Erica, myself, I guess, and of course the leadership team from Lambda Theta Alpha. Thank you so much, Pastor Pat, for being here with us, Nikki as well. And of course, Uncle Chris, thank you for joining us and doing this for us. It's been a great pleasure working with you all. And hearing all these stories, our members are very happy to have heard your story and everything. Of course, we know everything is very tragic, but also for learning from you, Pastor Pat. So thank you so much for joining us tonight.
For me. Mhm.
Thank
Thank
you,
you.
Lambda Theta Alpha Latin Sorority Incorporated, just for hosting and allowing this space to be heard, because these are the stories you just don't hear often, and we are encouraged to lead with change. I pray that going forward we'll not just take something from this from a small point of view, but we think about it. How can we act? How can we take part in this? How can we come together as a coalition? So thank you for all the viewers, for all the members for sharing, and most importantly, to Pastor Pat and Nikki. It's been an honor.
Thank you.